Good morning, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to this session aptly called Stroke of Genius. It's such a pleasure for me to be up here with these guys. I mean, they have not just brains, but they have huge hearts to do what they do. And, it is indeed their passion driving them to reimagine how design, technology, and empathy can empower the stroke community. So I invite you all to sit back, relax, and think of these heartfelt conversations as snapshots of creativity with real human impact. So, John, Elisa, Denise, and Orion. So my first chat session or topic will be to Denise. So Denise of Engineering Good would like to know how can technology be a bridge to inclusion? I mean, your approach in Engineering Good is quite unique. It starts with a problem statement. So can you share with us how, from a problem statement, moves to become a truly human solution that is beyond smart solutions?
Thank you, Margaret. So happy to be here to talk about this. It's something that Engineering Good is absolutely passionate about. We started in 2014, that's 11 years ago, working on problem statements with people with disabilities. We started a lot in the special education arena. We've worked with different SPED educators, OTs, PTs, caregivers, and the children themselves to create solutions that's usable for them and beneficial too. So in our course of work, we receive many different problem statements. They are all a variety of different challenges, from activities of daily living to even education or employment issues. And 5 years ago, we started a Tech for Good innovation program for youth innovators. And to date, we've worked with over 300 youth innovators and prototyped about 100 different projects. So the approach that we learn that is incredibly important is the better the quality of the product, it actually reflects a more in-depth conversation and relationship that the innovator has with the end user. The more time that end users spend with their, the more time innovators spend with their end users, they actually get a lot of feedback from their lived experiences. They actually get to prototype many different solutions, try and brainstorm together. So we learned that patients, they have to be partners in co-designing the solutions that they use, because they need to integrate in their lifestyle, their personal preferences also. Two-stroke survivors, their symptoms can manifest differently. They can have different preferences on the types of utensils that they want to use or food that they want to cook. Everyone is unique and brings a unique lived experience in that way. So we realized that by getting the end users to participate in designing, even brainstorming with us, doing some of their own research, contributing to our research, testing the prototypes, we teach the youths also how to give them a simple framework of how to analyze some of the prototypes that is given to them. And through that, we really try to build solutions that we can implement and not just prototype.
Thank you for your sharing. I think from prototypes, technology and prototypes, we'll move on to something a little bit more personal. And John, your work is about empathy in design. So how can design, in something as everyday that we use like cutlery, right, change the way stroke survivors experience connection, confidence, and even joy in daily life?
Thank you, Margaret. Connection and joy sounds a lot like something you get from human relationships. And I think the key to good relationships is effective communication. So my dad, who is a stroke survivor and my first sort of test subject, he's a designer too, and I get a lot of design influence from him. And we know that design is a form of communication as well. It's the product communicating to the user how it's supposed to be used. And for a stroke survivor who has to go through everyday tasks, facing all these objects and environments that were designed not for them, it's a breakdown in communication, and it's very frustrating. And so that's why my approach is to solve all these sort of smaller problems, because I feel like if I can remove all the frustration from their daily routines, it will put them in a much better mindset to be encouraged to go back to hobbies that they once found exciting, or to even be motivated for recovery. So in that way, solving small problems can pave the way for them to look toward bigger things.
Thank you, John. By the way, John's dad, Mr. Joseph Tay, and I used to be colleagues. But he's older than I am. Okay, thank you, John, for reminding us how design can touch the human spirit in small ways, right? That eventually snowballs into a big impact. Let us move on to our next speaker, and this is really interesting to almost half of this participants in this room here. It is about clothing. And clothing, it's really personal. It not only gives us comfort and confidence, it is also about identity. Elisa, from your work at Will and Well, what role does clothing play in helping stroke survivors feel empowered as they rebuild their confidence and independence?
Well, so at Will and Well, we design products with the forethought of persons with disabilities, elderly, and caregivers, right? So a lot of that process is very similar to the other innovators, where there's a lot of research in the process, a lot of observation, a lot of interviews, a lot of co-designing in that whole process, right? And it's only then we understand what independence means to them, what dignity looks like for them, right? And what comfort and ease and function works for them, right? How everything is for them. So in that whole process, we learned a lot of we like what Denise had shared. Even though we look at stroke as a theme, but we didn't I wasn't expecting that with the 8 participants that I was researching with, they all had their own way of adapting to their own disability, and to see how mankind are so resilient in just being able to find a solution to their daily dressing, to their ADLs, right? Addressing their ADLs was very eye-opening for me, and actually, if we take a step back and we look at ourselves, even as most of us here are able bodies, as I speak as a woman, if I don't have access to bra because I cannot put it on myself, how do I then begin to even show up, right? How do I begin to I can't even bring myself to step out of the house without that, right? So it's not just about that putting on process. It's not just about not being able to put on a piece of garment, but it's very much about then also how it influences your your interaction, your sense of self, your sense of community as well, right? And it trickles into everything else. So a lot of what we do is, we work with like people who are very successful in their workplace, but they come to me and say, but I cannot dress myself, right? So what we do is try and work with them to understand what their dressing challenges are, and we try to solve that so that they are able to show up at work, be successful at what they do, be present in their community, and that's how we see our work impact their sense of independence, their comfort, their ease, and how it trickles into everything in their life.
Yeah, because it's quite amazing that you are working on something as personal as undergarments, which we all take for granted, and especially for some particular women and me, matchy underwear is very important, and it's not only about dignity, it's about identity, and I mean, I frequently visit the hospitals, and oh my goodness, if you're not prepared for hospital visit, I feel I'm less of a person, because you're wearing, if it's Singapore General Hospital, it's peach colored. If it's Tan Tock Seng, it's lilac. You become a faceless person. And if you take undergarments away from a woman, I felt less than a woman. And she is working on undergarments for adaptive undergarment. So I think that is very important. Thank you for giving an identity and giving back the power of feeling and being a strong woman to the women folk. Thank you, Elisa.
Pleasure.
And my last chat would be with Orion, the handsome dude sitting right at the end. So Orion, as a designer and an engineer, what opportunities do you see for innovation to reimagine everyday tasks for the stroke community? And how can technology be used for rehab that's beyond the clinical walls?
Right, thank you, Margaret. Very nice question as well, something that I ask myself repeatedly every day. So I think a big part of the challenge that I foresee in a lot of those rehabilitation, that's just how Mr. Hin has elaborated, right? He needs to do it day in, day out, kind of like a repetitive and continuous process. And I think as much as intervention can come in the form of like communities, I think a lot of the time we spend on this rehab process is on our own. Like we spend it at home, right? For a lot of stroke survivors, some of them whose disability are so severe that they couldn't even leave the confines of their own homes, right? So they're very much kind of like in this very static environment. So right now, what I'm trying to develop, right, with the stroke survivors and support of S3 is using spatial computing technologies, for example, Apple Vision Pro or like the Meta Quest, for example, and bringing the exterior world to them instead of them going out to the world itself, right? So we can't forcefully bring them out to the world. It's very, very expensive as well when it comes to like adaptive cabs for wheelchairs. So how can we bring some of those world to them? And I think in terms of, for example, training we talk a lot about activities of daily living, right, ADLs. So we've sort of utilized certain technologies and innovations, for example, in the Apple Vision Pro, to allow them to interact with virtual objects, to be able to actually touch and feel them, to have these new forms of interactions that they are not able to do previously. So one thing I found when I was interviewing clinicians at Ng Teng Fong Hospital is that they have this physical kitchen set up in the hospital that teaches them how to utilize certain tools and knives and utensils. But the thing is, there's only one kitchen, and due to sort of the increasing number of stroke survivors, unfortunately, we have every year, there won't be enough physical interventions that we can implement to actually introduce some of these activities. Right? So by bringing some of those exercises into the virtual realm, patients are able to exercise more, have more accessible accessible interventions for themselves that they can do with limited supervision from the clinicians, or at least like not in person, they can monitor them remotely. And this is how I see potentially how we can bring technology to the homes of the people, right? Actually help them to create this social and community good for them as well.
Thanks, Orion. I mean, this is indeed a chat, and I'm sure you'd like to engage in deeper conversations with our innovators here. So they are around after the session, so do feel free to reach out to them. And they have a lot to share. I mean, their passion, when you talk to them one-on-one, it's unbelievable. And you know, you have such big hearts. I really salute you guys. And I say that is because on the 14th of April 2023, I had a hemorrhagic stroke at work. So I don't know what happened. I just, you know, things just started to fade, and I grabbed my managing director and I says, we need to go to hospital now. And of course, along the way, I just totally blacked out. So I had no idea whether she dragged me out of the taxi, no idea, and I don't really want to know. So anyway, my family was fully unprepared because I was, and I still am, the sole breadwinner. I am the pillar in my family. Any decisions, any key making decisions, anything, they all come to me. So when the pillar collapsed, they didn't know what to do, right? And and it was through sheer motivation and will, I had to make myself better for them, because I could see them. It wasn't me. I could see them collapsing before my very eyes. What are we supposed to do? And I take this opportunity to thank the medical and the health community. And that was why I said to Raina, I want my 1 minute here, because without your support, your care, your concern, I wouldn't be here. You know, when I tell people I am a stroke patient or a stroke warrior, they go like, huh? You got stroke, meh? Yes, I had a stroke, but it's everything else that made me overcome this. And unfortunately, or maybe fortunately, I do have lasting impacts of that, which is I developed post-stroke epilepsy or seizure. And I'm still figuring out what are my triggers. Like, you know, just recently it was noise. But it's all part of a journey. And I am grateful every morning when I wake up that I can still say, I am Margaret, and I know who I am. And I thank S3 for giving me this chance to be the specialist in advocacy and strategic communications, to be in this group, to be with these innovators, and to be here with every one of you. And again, I want to say a big thank you to the medical and to the healthcare for your encouragement, your support, your hard work. The nurses are amazing despite the abuse they get. Yes, I do witness that when I'm in the hospital. The doctors, when they rush around doing their rounds, they still have time to speak to me, who is a patient of Ward 2B, 2C. It doesn't matter whether you are Ward A, you know, whether you are Class 3, you are their patient. So thank you very much, medical and health sectors, from my heart. And to all our innovators here, Denise, John, Orion, thank you for reminding us that innovation is not just about solutions, but it is about people, dignity, and hope. And through S3's Innovation Lab, let's look forward to looking more of these ideas come to life. Thank you very much. Look out for them later.